Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 100 of the IROCKNITS podcast. Can you believe it? Centennial, here we come. I can't believe I've hung in here for 100 episodes, but what I cannot believe more is that you've hung in here for 100 episodes. I've got my little piece of chocolate right here propped up, so you can all see that I've got my treat, so we can all celebrate together. If you don't have chocolate or a salty treat, whichever is your preference, go ahead and grab it and then sit down and join me so we can celebrate together, because I do think it's pretty amazing that all of you have stuck around every other week for the last 4 years. My podcast anniversary comes at the end of August 2018, and so that will also be a major milestone for me to hang in there and do this. I think I've only missed once or twice in the 4 years. I've tried really hard to be consistent so that people would know where to find me and when to find me. So thank you so much for being here. I am wearing my fireworks dress today. I think we can say happy 4th of July for those of you that are patriotic in any way, shape, or form. We have our flag flying out front. But I do think that our country's in a bit of a crisis, dilemma, upset, and it's hard. It's hard to be pro-country, positive country. But I do think that we can also honor veterans and their service in this time. So if you were ever a veteran, our patriotic duty is to honor you and uphold you. We did spend the weekend away at the lake, so I have some stories about that, some kind of funny stories about that. We went up to Lake Winnebagosh. I've talked about it before. It's a big lake in northern Minnesota. It's where the Mississippi River starts just west of there and flows into a giant lake that was land that was set aside back in the day, and they kind of dammed it up and flooded it. Very deep lake, very large. A little scary for me to be out on, to be honest. I'm not super fan of going out in a little boat on a giant lake. I can swim and I like lakes and water skiing. I did all that growing up, but this lake is just so big that the wind can come up in a heartbeat, and then you're bouncing all the way back to the resort. We stayed in a small cabin this time. We did really have a nice time. When my husband fishes, he thinks. And so he goes out and spends time just thinking about things, and then we have good, long conversations about important aspects of our life. We talked about retirement, and we talked about vacations, and where we want to live and where we want to be in the next 20 years, who we want to visit, what parts of the country we might want to go to, all those kinds of things. And it's always interesting to me that you can learn something new about your spouse. He wants to go to visit Alaska, and I didn't know that. He had never verbally shared that, and I'm not opposed, but he had just had they have got new business in Alaska, and so some of his coworkers just got back, and they talked about how wonderful it was. And he and I have talked about going to Vancouver and back up to Banff in Canada, but not that far west. So I said, really? Yeah. So that was interesting. And he also talked about wanting to spend some time in the South during the winter months. And that was kind of a surprise to me, because doesn't seem to mind the winter. So we had just some really nice conversation. We walked together every afternoon. We took, long walks. I'm trying to work my way up with this bum foot that I have to walking more. I'll be talking about that a little bit too later. So let's enjoy a little piece of chocolate before we get started. I don't know if I really want to eat on camera. And this just is out of the oven. I made a small pan of brownies. I'll get a little sugar high. And then I have my glorious stainless steel mug. If I haven't talked about these before, we have completely converted from plastic mugs to these stainless steel, which keep your drinks so cold for such a long period of time. Almost every day, my husband or I go to the gas station in town, or he will often go to McDonald's, which is a ways away, but he prefers their pop. And we get pop like this, and he'll sometimes go first thing in the morning before he starts his workday, and then he puts it in the fridge And when I get up or later on in the day, I will have a fountain pop in the fridge. And so keeping them cold over a long period of time. I'm a sipper. I sip all day. I rarely ever finish one. I just really, with my dry mouth, prefer to drink soda. If you're new, I take a medication that makes my mouth dry. I struggle even to sleep through the night without waking up with really dry mouth, so I have to drink a little water during the night. And so having one of these just to take little sips out of all day, we fill them quite full with ice. It seems like a lot of pop. I think it's 32 ounces, but the ice is up to about here. So yeah, that's our treat. So I do have one of those that I got out of the fridge today because he went this morning and got pop for us. I got this dress at Kohl's. I know someone will ask often when I wear these kind of funny clothes. Someone will ask. And I want to talk a little bit about the card that I held up today. Yes, this is orange yarn. And I have a couple women in my life who hold me up, who lift me up, who check in with me, who I would call dear friends, even though I don't see them as often as I see some other people in my life. But Janet, I want to thank you so much for driving out to my house and ringing the doorbell with this 100th card. Congratulations. 100 episodes is a big accomplishment. And yes, it is actually. It was just kind of surprising to see her at my door. There was a little gift inside, which was very nice of her. But I want to say kind of thank you to Mary and also to Suzanne, people who check in and always lift me up in their thoughts. As a woman, it's sometimes hard to find good female friends who remain consistent, no matter your faults, of which I have a few. So I really appreciate those people in my life who continually show up for me, and I hope that I show up for them. I try to check in on people often, but anyway, let's get started. I have so much to talk to you about today. The table is full, and we have all the prizes for the knit along, which is going to be super fun. But I'm going to have to stop recording and grab those in the list because there are so many, and I'm going to try to do a really efficient job of going through those at the end, showing them, and then I've already drawn the names for all the prizes, so that will be more toward the end because then I can just stop the recording. All right, the recipe of the week. I'm going to take again from this salad cookbook. We've really just been using it a lot. And this is a creamy Italian dressing. And I'm not always a huge fan of Italian because the ratios have to be right for me. Too oily, don't like it. Too vinegary, don't like it. But this is creamy. And I was like, oh, and we loved this. So it was 1.5 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, 1.5 tablespoons of grated Parmesan, small shallot. And I have dried shallots in my spice jar from Penzeys, and because Ross doesn't like onions, I like to use a lot of dried flavorings because he's not a peppers and onions fan, which I've talked about. So I used one of those and just put that right into the blender, the small dried shallot, 1 small garlic clove, 1 teaspoon dried oregano, 1/8 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. I'm always leery about how much to put in because I don't want it to be too spicy and over the top. 1/4 cup of mayonnaise, 2 tablespoons of sour cream or Greek yogurt. I had both. I used the yogurt. 1.5 teaspoons of chopped fresh basil, and 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And you just mix that all up in your blender. It makes about, what did that say on here? 3/4 cup. Mine didn't make quite that much. It was maybe more like just over a half. It was perfect for the two of us, but if I was going to make it for more, I would have doubled it. Absolutely delicious. And all I did was pour everything in and blend it. Now, the only problem with making dressings for yourself is then you have a dirty blender. I mean, because you got to take it apart and whatever. I could use my handheld, but I don't. I just get out the blender and blend it all together. But I'm thinking about making up some dressings at the beginning of the month and then kind of having them for 2 weeks so I don't have to make them when we want to have salad a couple times a week. for our meals in the summer. We just want to have lighter fare. So that is your recipe of the week. And then, I don't know who I was talking to. We were talking about how you can have all this leftover stuff in your refrigerator, right? You just need to use it up. And it came to mind because when we were headed for the lake, Ross packs the food now. I used to do the food and the packing and getting the stuff ready, and I stopped liking going to the lake because it felt like so much work for me when we would go as a family. He was working and I did most of the stuff. And I told him, if we're going to keep going, you have to start packing and planning more. And so now we have Sterilite boxes in the basement that have the towels in them. So we have kitchen towels, pot pads, bath towels, hand towels in that box. That's the lake box, so we don't have to continually go around and grab that stuff. And then we have a couple of food boxes in the basement that we just keep salt and pepper and a little container of sugar in there, and that kind of stuff, of spray oil or avocado oil or whatever. And then we have a box that has like the tick repellent, Deep Woods Off. We have sunscreen in there. We have some insulated cups in there, that kind of thing. So he was making a list, and now what I have done is I have written down all the things that we have to remember to take every time, and I printed it out and put it in a plastic sheet, and it's on top of a box. And he said to me this weekend, I use that list every time. He said it just helps you remember everything we need to remember to bring. And this time, what did we forget? We forgot the checkbook, and they prefer we pay in cash and you get a discount. So we added that to the list, and we didn't have an extension cord this time. And we stayed in a smaller cabin, and the couch that I was sitting on to knit and to have my iPad were too far away from the plug, so that once my phone died or once my iPad died, I had to go leave them next to a plug for a while. And so I said, it'd be really nice if we just had an extension cord along. We've used a fan in the cabin before. It does have they do have air conditioning, but they're just small units. It was lovely up there though. Oh my goodness. It was like 80 degrees, and then it got down to like 70 early evening, and the bugs really weren't all that bad. Sometimes at night when we go up to the lodge to have ice cream, which is such a treat, the mosquitoes will practically carry you away, and that wasn't the case at all. So I have some video that I'm going to put in at the end of a little boat ride we took up the Mississippi River. I usually don't go out fishing with Ross anymore. I just prefer not to fish. I don't want to be out on the big lake, and I just want to knit. And knitting on the boat is possible, but not as fun, right? So then I used to read on the boat, and I don't know, it's not my thing. So he said, well, we could go for a little ride up the Mississippi. I said, how far can we go? He goes, I have no idea. And it gets fairly shallow. It's wide there, so the water can get down to like 3 feet in places, because it's this kind of the start of the river. But when we came back, we asked the people, and you can go 6 miles all the way up to the next town if you know where the channel is, because you have to stay, there are buoys, but not all the way up. So we went a little ways, and we saw a whole flock of pelicans, and they're gigantic, and it was just fascinating to see them all swimming together. So that was fun. So I kind of did a little video of that for you guys, just as a quiet moment in the podcast, as well as the hummingbirds. There were flocks of hummingbirds, and they would just zip in and out around your head. She has a hummingbird feeder that probably has 4 or 6 holes in it, and they fight over them. It was just incredible. We've had one hummingbird that has repeatedly come to our hummingbird, but we've emptied it twice, so we don't know if they're coming later in the evening and we're just not seeing them, or if that one little hummingbird is a glutton. So anyway, that's your recipe of the week. We did go up north, had a wonderful time. I'm going to share a story about that later. But on our packing list, we usually have things that we want to take every time for backup, a box of Bisquick for making pancakes, or a box of macaroni and cheese in case we don't have something to eat and we want to have something quick and easy. Anyway, and we had potatoes in the pantry, and I said to Ross, we need to probably use those potatoes or they're going to go bad, right? We're going to have to use up those potatoes. So he said, put them in a bag and we'll take them along. We didn't use them. But I said, anything else in the freezer that we can take And he said, like what? And I said, well, we'll just call it cream of bottom shelf. And I just meant, put everything in a casserole with some pasta and you're good to go. If you've got zucchini, if you've got carrots, if you've got mushrooms, any of that fresh stuff that just starts to go. So there you go. Another recipe you can make this week, cream of bottom shelf. Let's do the audiobooks this week. I have 4. The first one is called The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. It's been on my list forever. I did not enjoy it as much as some other books that I've read recently, but I'm glad I read it. It was quite interesting. The Song of Achilles is a tale of gods, kings, immortal fame, and the human heart. It's a dazzling literary feat that brilliantly reimagines Homer's enduring masterwork, the Iliad, an action-packed adventure, an epic love story, a marvelously conceived and executed page-turner, Miller's monumental debut novel. So, I was shocked because she interprets the history a bit in a way that makes for good reading, but not necessarily the way that I would have thought that things would have happened. It was just quite interesting, the whole story. It is a love story, and I did like the characters quite a bit. I didn't want to not listen to it, but it just wasn't like the first book I would pick to read, but I did like it. So it just wasn't wouldn't have been on my first choice, kind of a historical remastering of a classic. But I would say, yeah, I could recommend it, like 4 stars. I mean, it was very well done. Yeah. So the next book I read was Blue Lightning by Anne Cleeves. I've been trying to go through those titles kind of quickly. This is number 4 in the series by her, and it's Inspector Jimmy Perez takes his fiancée home to Fair Isle. So if you're a knitter, you kind of want to learn about Fair Isle, the Shetland Islands, the Faroese Islands. The tiny island he comes from to meet his parents. The island is a magnet for bird watchers who congregate at the local inn and lighthouse. When a local married celebrity who had an eye for the lads is murdered, Perez discovers that the suspects are very close to him indeed. Murder mystery happens on an island. It is the basis for that BBC show Shetland, starring Douglas Henshaw. And the first 2 nights on the air, it had 12 million viewers. So it's a very popular series. Some of you may have read them all. I do enjoy them. They're fairly quick read. Don't take very long at all. This one was 11 hours and I got it done in a couple of days. I do listen to a lot of books on 1.5 speed, and sometimes if I feel like I'm lagging and I'm just not listening enough, I'll put it up to 1.75. That can make the voices a little squeaky, but it doesn't bother me very much. It really drives my husband nuts. He says, I don't understand how you can listen to him that fast on that speed. But mostly 1.5. Okay, then I read The Lost Apothecary, and this one was 10 hours long. And it is a most anticipated book. Oprah, Bustle, Pop Sugar, Sweet July, Goodreads, March 2021 it came out. A Forgotten History, A Secret Network of Women, A Legacy of Poison and Revenge. Hidden in the depths of 18th century London, a secret apothecary shop caters to an unusual kind of clientele. Women across the city whisper of a mysterious figure named Nella who sells well-disguised poisons to use against the oppressive men in their lives. So fascinating premise. Women who are greatly mistreated that can find their way to this hidden apothecary shop that's down an alley. And then it also has a present day person who is investigating and trying to figure out where this all came from. Highly recommend. Quite well written by Sarah Penner. I did really enjoy it. It's mystery, a bit of myth, where you're hearing about things that women have done, poisons that they've used, but you don't know that it's all true. So anyway, that one was very good too. And then the last one I listened to is called The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Hansen. And This is a hard read in some respects. There is a violence against African Americans, and it's the time of the Underground Railroad, but the story is fantastic. In the waning days of the Civil War, brothers Prentice and Landry, freed by the Emancipation Proclamation, seek refuge on the homestead of George Walker and his wife Isabel. The Walkers, wrecked by the loss of their only son to the war, hire the brothers to work their farm, hoping through an unexpected friendship to staunch their grief. Prentice and Landry, meanwhile, plan to save money for the journey north and a chance to reunite with their mother. And then parallel to the story runs a forbidden romance between two Confederate soldiers. The young men, recently returned from the war to the town of Old Ox, hold their trysts in the woods, but when their secret is discovered, the resulting chaos, including a murder, unleashes convulsive repercussions on the entire community. So you've got two stories going on, and the Walker family, the husband and wife, are the people you'd want to be back then, right? Who are willing to help the African Americans who have been freed, willing to step up, willing to help them work their land. The last half of the book is phenomenal. The things that the family does to try to help, it's just very well done. I really liked it. But the most important thing I need to tell you, if you're going to listen to this book, there is a description of his mother's knitting at 4 hours, 46 minutes that you need to listen to or read. So this is a 12-hour story. So you're a third of the way through, and knitting is mentioned. And then a little bit later, knitting is mentioned again for a long period of time. And one of the brothers knits and can make things. And the descriptions of his mother knitting are fantastic. I wish I had the hard copy book so that I could read that portion to you out loud. It's so good. The description, how he describes knitting and what it meant to their family and to his mother, and yeah, the whole book can be based on those few pages of writing. Just really. And if I can find it online, if I can Google and find that section online printed somewhere, which I would doubt because they would never print just several pages, I would read it to you. But anyway, hour 4, 46 minutes in on the Libby app is where you would find that. Okay? So there are your 4 books this week. I would give thumbs up to all of them. I probably liked The Sweetness of Water is going to stick with me for a really long time. And The Lost Apothecary was fascinating. Blue Lightning is just a mystery. You know you're going to figure out who done it. Those are always a nice palate cleanser. And The Song of Achilles I learned quite a bit. So yeah, I can't pick a favorite on that. Right. Let's do the sweater of the week. The sweater of the week this week is my Castle pullover. And I love this sweater. And I knit it with Noro, kind of a worsted, thick and thin, lovely yarn. And the top half is top-down raglan with a square neck. And so you don't always have to knit a round neck, or a V-neck. This one has a square neck, which is just lovely. I really like how it fits. And then halfway down, you have this lovely lace panel. This is an older pattern. It is by Cecily Glowick McDonald. It came out in 2010. I didn't knit it until several years later, but it's a classic, just perfect summer sweater. It's got that lace, short sleeves, easy to knit because none of the lace is done up at the yoke. It comes in sizes 30 3/4 to 58, so pretty good range. There are 8 sizes. It's knit from the top down with raglan shaping. The bottom is made a bit wider by using a larger needle, so there's no shaping within the lace pattern. And so you could go up a needle size and then go up another needle size and then go up another needle size if you needed even more give at the bottom or to be even wider at the bottom, but you don't have to do increases in the lace section. So that's super nice. There are 288 projects, so I'm sure you could find someone out there that has a color that speaks to you, but today I was doing the blues and I was thinking, gosh, I'm gonna have both projects be in blue, and I'm thinking of you, PJ Knits, and your love of blue and my mother's love of blue. So this is a lovely worsted weight, 20 stitches, 30 rows, knit on a size 7 or 8 knitting needle. My notes are that I knitted in Nora Shira Kaba. I knit it in 2013, so 3 years after it came out. I used 5 skeins of that yarn, so about 680, almost 700 yards. I don't think I used all the yarn because I do have some of this yarn left over, and I have it in another colorway, and I was always going to do something with that yarn to stripe it. I have like a limey green and this bright blue, and I was always going to stripe it, so I know I have a bag that has some blue skeins in it because I come across it every once in a while. But a lovely project. If you're looking for summer sweater, you could certainly do it in a cotton. That would be lovely. I don't mind that it's striped like that there were lights and darks, but that might be a problem for you because it does kind of detract a little bit from the lace bottom. So maybe I would knit it again in more of a solid or a tonal yarn, something that didn't have such highs and lows, highlights. But yeah, the sweater of the week. The shawl of the week is this Wrapsody in B, and this is by Stephen Berg. And this is a cowl with drop stitches. So if you've never done drop stitches, a perfect little project. It's knit flat and then joined. This came as a mini skein set, 5 colors, so it goes up and around 1, 2, 3, 5 colors. And this is white down here, creamy white. Might be looking a little blue because of the shirt behind it, but it's not. And it came in one of those chained sets of yarn that hang. I don't know if you've been to an event where they have those. So the put up is really cool. It came out in 2014. It calls for sport weight. It was the 2014 Shop Pop pattern. The team at Stephen B has created an amazing all-season wrap by using a 5-color gradation custom braid by Frabjous Fibers, which is what I used. The new pattern features many of Stephen's favorite concepts, color gradation done by you and not the skein, with a bright color pop and a simple teardrop stitch that hovers between ribbing, creating a light, airy, comforting wrap. The shaping of this style inspired by Stephen's famous Poncini. It's very important to block the finished wrap out to 12 to 14 inches wide. That's a note highlighted in bold. And then here are those skeins that hang like a chain in all the colorways. It was really fun to buy the yarn that way. It was a different put up than I had seen before back then. Now you see those more often. The ones I've seen most recently are the ones that are chained together in that little wreath, and they're barber pulled yarn. Really, really cute. 85 projects. There were several done in other colorways. You kind of feather in the new color by doing 1 row of the old color and then 1 row of the new color and then 2 rows of the old color and 2 rows of the new color. So you feather that in and then it just is shaped. You can wear it like a poncho or you can wear it like a cowl. You can wrap it double. The whole opening is quite large, so it could go twice around your neck. But if you have a set of mini skeins in a heavier weight yarn, or if you want to knit it in fingering, I think it would work up just fine. It calls for sport, and the gauge is 6 stitches to an inch, so it's just a little bit smaller than a worsted gauge at 5 stitches to the inch. So there are your 2 blue projects this week. I don't always do blue, but they just happen to come out at the same time this time. Okay, I have a whole bunch of finished objects. Because we went to the lake, I have been not designing, although I do have a hat in testing right now, but I've been trying to take a month or 2 off and just figure out how I want to go forward with, now that I'm back to teaching so much and I don't won't be home to design full time, how much time I want to spend and what projects that I really do want to design and what I don't. But in the meantime, I'm trying to finish up just a pile of whips, things that I've had on the needles forever. And as you know, many of you know, I had 15 different projects on the needles there for a while, and it just wasn't going down because I'd start something new and finish it and never go back to this old stuff. So I went through the smallest projects that I had started in bags, and I had more of those than were hanging on my tree when I did my whips podcast and shared with you. But this is the first one that I had on the needle, and this is my Cottywomple cowl, and I did it in a short version, and I had won this yarn, and it is the bamboo yarn by Bee Sweet and a curly Q mohair held together, and so it turned out super soft and fluffy. And it's just the same repeat of one row and then knit a row and then one row repeat. I put markers in for every repeat, which means they're slipping a lot of markers. But then that way, when I pick it up the next time, I know right where I am. You know, there's knit two together, yarn over, knit three, slip, slip, knit. It's just a repeat over and over again, and it makes this lovely bias where you're working through. Yeah. So I got that one done. Off the needles, feeling good about that. It is my pattern, the Cottywomple cowl. It works up great in stripes. You can make it as long as you want, as short as you want. I just used up all the yarn in this, and it did turn out really nice. I think it will be a Christmas gift for someone. So I'm going to put that in the box of finished items that I don't need to wear myself. Then about a week ago, my friend posted that she had finished knitting this yarn, and a bunch of us bought this yarn at the yarn market in Madison, Wisconsin, when we were at the Sun Valley thaw, a January thaw, and we all bought it. And it was so ironic because it was many years ago, and she just finished her socks, and I was like, I had stuck this yarn in a bag with the pattern and just completely forgot about it, and it was just a vanilla sock. There's nothing too fancy, but the yarn is just beautiful. This is a Regia. It was 2 skeins, 250-gram skeins. It is colorway 04067. Came in 2 50-gram skeins. So a pair of socks complete. And then this pair, which are darker than I expected, but I still think they're so cool. This is called Plaid Play, and it's by Camille Chang. Came out in 2012. It is fingering weight using Knit Picks yarn. It says on this pattern page that this digital pattern is no longer available online, and so I don't know why it was taken down. Maybe Knit Picks owns it. I'm not sure, and that may be in their website. This is a slight variation of the traditional basket weave pattern knit on one circular needle with the directions for 3 sizes. The pattern knits up faster with one color in each hand, and if careful attention is paid to tension, there need be no carrying of the floats. I will show you some of the other colorways. There's a white and blue, green and yellow, black and white. But I think I saw someone knit it up with this rainbow yarn. In the rainbow yarn had a cream with it. I think not black, but this is just an afterthought heel so that you can go ahead and keep going up. And it just has this 1x1 every other color on the bottom, but super lot of bang for your buck, right? Then I finished some washcloths. So I'm teaching my new knitters for one more month after they finish knitting at the library. Then I meet with them on Wednesdays at a local coffee shop if they need help, so that they can come in, so that they don't come to 3 weeks or 6 weeks of knitting class and then are stuck and can never move forward. So every Wednesday for a couple of hours I go to this coffee shop, and if they need help they can come. And, they pay me $5 and I can help them move on to the next thing, or fix a problem that they have. But they're done now because I don't meet with people in July. It's just too busy. People don't show up. Then I'm sitting at a coffee shop and no one comes, whatever. So I just usually do through June. And I wanted to give them some things where they could move on and continue to learn without my help. So I suggested the Knitting a Square pattern books where you can learn different stitch patterns, but you're either making dishcloths or you're making squares to sew together for a quilt box. And I had just purchased this Knit Picks Dishy Twist, which is just lovely. I really like it. It is not as heavy as your traditional washcloth yarn like Peaches and Cream or Sugar and Cream. It is lighter. They call it a worsted weight, but I think you can tell this is not a huge washcloth. They usually turn out a little bit bigger, but this is just Grandma's favorite washcloth, and I knit it up, and then I knit a second one to the point at which I could show them all what the pattern was. I've started now another one because I want to use up all this orange yarn, but I was showing them how it's knit 2 yarn over, knit it all the way across, turn around, knit 2 yarn over all the way across, so that you could make dishcloths and practice different stitches. So I used this for them because they were going to need a pattern written out. I kind of have it memorized. I kind of know how to do it, but this is a 3-row repeat of Grandma's favorite, the original. It is on the blog by someone named Ruth, and it is comes from 2005, but it was free, and that's what I needed for them. And so I just Googled to find a free pattern so that they could have something to follow. I do have my own washcloth pattern out on Ravelry. It's called the Emoji washcloth, and it comes with a smiling face or a flat face, and I did it. It's a $1 pattern. I did it for the Zombie Knitpocalypse retreat several years ago when emojis was the theme, and we were doing a knit along, and designers could use their patterns for people to get more points. And so I just designed a quick cotton washcloth, so that is out there. But I shared this book with all of them. This is Easy Knit Dishcloths, and this is by Hella Benedicte Nygaard. It's a Denmark designer, and it says learn to knit stitch by stitch with modern stash buster projects. And there are 11 different washcloth designs in this book, and they're lovely. You can learn all kinds of stitch patterns from this, and then you could use wool or acrylic and sew the blocks together to make a baby blanket. So you could be learning while you're knitting, and that made a lot of sense to the people that were in my class. Like at first they're kind of going, washcloths, right? Only a real knitter who's knit and used a cotton washcloth for a long time understands the loveliness of a knitted washcloth, right? So I just shared this. I got this book from the Christian Book Bag online for $2.89. You can Google it. It isn't available, I don't think, brand new anymore, but it is available at different places. It was originally $12.99, the book, and there are 11 patterns in it, but you can find it used at a bunch of different places. So I just thought I'd share that because I shared that with all of them, and I really do like this Dishy twist, but I didn't see any more of the twist on Knit Picks, so they might be out, but they had all the solid colors, and they had a ton of this Dishy in solid colors. It just feels really good. I mean, it doesn't have any give. I've talked about that before. If you're going to knit with cotton, you have to change your knitting. You can't knit with cotton. There is no give in that at all. And so you cannot act like it's wool. You have to put your yarn over more gently, pull it through more gently. What I always say, you just think loose thoughts when you're knitting with cotton, and you will not get that hand fatigue. If you're fighting your yarn the entire time, your hands are going to get sore. And that often happens with large needles. People are gripping things tighter, or with cotton yarn. And so if you can just think loose thoughts, but I always give the little analogy that if you are a sewer you will not sew the same way on all fabrics, right? You wouldn't sew on polyester the way you sew on cotton, the way you sew on jersey. You're going to change it up. You're going to change your tension. It's the same thing with different kinds of fibers. Flax, silk, cotton, they're all going to need a little different handling. The knit stitches aren't different. It's just the way you're working with them. So I finished 2 dishcloths, another one on the needles. That's going to go in the car now. That's going to be my car knitting because the socks and the Christmas the Christmas hat with the leggings has come out of the car. I've ripped out the leggings. I just wasn't happy with them, and I'm going to rewind up that yarn today, and I'm going to make mittens for the little girls for Christmas out of that Christmas yarn, and that has been a dilemma for a long time. So I needed that to just be ripped out and fixed because the girls have tiny little legs and the leggings were turning out too big, and I thought it was going to be a cute idea, but it really isn't. Oh, and Cody's right under my feet, and I kicked my sandals off, and so I have my foot on his shoulder. He's just, we were worried that when we went up north that something could happen while we were gone, but we were 4 hours away, and we have friends in the cities who would have, taken care of us if we needed help. But he came bounding out of daycare yesterday when I went to pick him up, just like happy as a clam. Hey, Mom! He still is showing no real signs of knowing that he has cancer. And we've been months and months now. So he's going to be that one dog that defies the odds of 6 weeks to 6 months because we saw the problem in February, we got it diagnosed in March, and now it's July. And they said it would spread. So we just we're just so thankful for every day that we still have with him. And he's being super nice at Mom's feet while Dad's outside mowing the lawn. Okay, the last thing that I finished is the item that I worked on the entire time we're at the lake. I took 4 or 5 projects along. I just didn't know what I felt like working on. I was going to finish my orange derecho sweater. That was going to be the sweater of the week this week. I was going to show it. I took my try-it-on tubing with me. I had decided to make it longer. I knit and knit and knit and knit and knit. And then when I tried it on, it's too long. I am currently walking with a larger bottom than I have had in the past. And the longer sweater was going out at the top of that bottom. And it just did not look good at all. And I thought that I had made it wide enough that it would just be more tunic-like, because I do wear a lot of tunics, longer items, and I do have a couple of knit ones, but I did not add enough increases. It's loose, but it doesn't have enough positive ease. And so it comes down, and then it's sitting on the top of my hind end. There's no other way to talk about it. It's too big back there right now. And so I need to rip it back, and that frustrated me because I was so bored of that stockinette, and I should have tried it on, 3 inches sooner, but I had tried it on when it was cropped, and I thought, no, I'm not going to like that, and I just didn't take into the account my new wider body that I need to think about. So I'm going to rip that back up. And I think I would just wear a long shirt underneath it or wear dresses instead of re-knitting it wider. I would have to take out a lot. So that just got set in that bag while we were up there. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to work on? I have a couple of sweaters that I took along. That one is just stockinette. And I thought I'm going to be bored if I just knit stockinette in the cabin. And so I decided to do the mittens that I had started for Kylie last December. And these are the How Cold Is It mittens, and they are by Drunk Girl Designs, and they're naughty. They're very naughty. And what happened with Kylie was she moved to her new house, and when she was at the old apartment, in the days we were moving her, she had packaged up all of her stuff in boxes and everything, and then she had big black trash bags. Told this story, I'm pretty sure, before, and she put her winter coats and her hats and her scarves and her mittens and like 2 fall coats and 3 winter coats all in a black bag. And she and I told her father that we should take the black bags home because they were going to Goodwill. And there were Goodwill items that Kylie was getting rid of, but not that bag. And it went to Goodwill. And so she lost all her coats and her favorite jean jacket with all these pins on it. And she was just devastated when it wasn't in our basement. And her dad was like, somebody needed to tell me. Even if I'd have looked inside, I wouldn't have known that those weren't coats that needed to go. So, of course, our anger was on him because he did it, but he didn't. He would never have intentionally done that. But she did, so we had to, negotiate figuring out what coats that she needed to replace. And then she said, and I lost those mittens you made for me so long ago, Mom. And I taught at-risk students for 17 years. And I am a person who swears when I get frustrated or angry. I use foul language. And the students that I taught often used swear words as adjectives. And they would use the F word often. And when Kylie was younger, we would talk about how words have power. And if you were being bullied or treated poorly, that you needed to think about the words that those people were using against you or words that you used with others. And currently, Kylie has a small little tattoo right on the inside of her arm, and it says words in cursive. And she's just really moved by the written word, but also the spoken word. And we talked a lot about how we give words power. And in my classroom, I would often say, I'm not letting that word have power in my room. We are going to assume that you are not meaning any ill intent when you use that word, that you may live in a household that uses that word to describe everything, chairs and plates and effing this, that. And so I had made Kylie, when she went to college, I think, this pair of mittens. And so this is what they look like. And they say cold as fire truck on them. And she just was really bummed that she didn't have them anymore. And she wore them, quite a bit. And so I said, I will make another pair. So I use Knit Picks yarn, fingering weight. The bottom has this corrugated 1x1 rib and then some checkerboard. This side is super fun to knit. It just moves over. It is an afterthought thumb or a forethought thumb where you just put these stitches on hold and then cast on over the hole, come back and pick up. I did like that she did the thumb in one color. By this point in 3 days of knitting, you're so ready to not figure out the pattern. I certainly could have done it in the diagonal, but I was just like, didn't really want to. And then I just mimicked the top. On the original mitten, she has like a snowflake design up here with a little random, and all over this entire background are little random dots, which are kind of a pain to count and figure out where she wants the dots to go. And she's just helping you carry your floats, and that's one of our tips for today. So I'm going to talk about that. But I had done the cuff to maybe here on both of these, and then they had been sitting there, and I just needed to sit down with a chart, and I decided to do it at the lake. And I did not have the chart with me, which was really frustrating, so I'd use my phone, which is fine. But there was a right mitten and a left mitten chart, and I did remember to do them, which in the past I have made 2 rights and 2 lefts a number of times. But this pattern is for sale on Ravelry for $5.50, and it is for mature content, so it's highlighted as mature content. 32 stitches and 36 rows and 4 inches using Knit Picks. It's written for a women's medium size or men's small. You can wear something underneath them. They're not super oversized. I mean, they just fit me perfect. I just used steam last night, and because I don't really know if Kylie's hand is that much bigger than mine. I doubt that it is. So I just used steam to block them instead of wetting them. But so how cold is it mittens? And hopefully that was not offensive to any of you, because we all know that that is known as a very offensive swear word, but we give that word power, right? we give that word power when we use it in anger. Now I'm being a teacher. Sometimes I watch my podcast back, and I have just become such a teacher in the moment, and I just want to be like a woman sharing her knitting. I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to be telling you things. I want to be sharing. So hopefully I'm more aware of that now that I've been noticing that sometimes, you know, when you do something for a long period of time and you do it with young adults who are younger than you have that sense of, I am over them, and I do not want to ever come across that way with any of you in my audience. So anyway, there we go. Those are all the things I finished because we were at the lake and I knit in the car, and it's a 4.5 hour drive up and a 4.5 hour drive back, and I had 2 weeks of knitting in between, and then I will get back to ripping out that derecho. It's just such a bummer that I knit so much more. But once I get it ripped out, it'll be done. I'll just put the bottom on and be over it. So, one of the things that I shared with my new knitters last week was picking up long floats in order to trap your yarn on the next round. So if you are a color work newbie or a beginner and you are knitting and you have to knit 6 stitches of green and then 2 stitches of white and then 6 stitches of green, if you're working with worsted weight or heavier weight yarn, those 6 stitches are going to have a piece of yarn drug across the back of them that is long, that you can get your fingers stuck in. So I was teaching them how to knit the Nice Capades hat, and 4 of them decided to give it a try. So they cast on and knit their ribbing, and then I taught them how to start a new color of yarn because they've never done that before. So they're knitting around and they're following a little star chart. It's super simple. It's a great starter, but there are a couple places where the float across the back, the piece of yarn that's running from this white stitch over to this white stitch behind a bunch of purple stitches, is long. And so I sent them all on their way, thinking that they would get a few rows done, and then when they came back, we could talk about catching floats and that kind of thing. Well, 2 of them came back with the whole hat done, and the long floats were just hanging out there, but one of them said, I really did wonder how I was going to get that without getting little fingers caught in it, because she made it for a grandson. But one of the things that you can do is the next round that you go around, if you're looking on the inside and you have that long float there, you can just stick your needle into the next knit stitch and have the float go up on the needle, and then knit the stitch and the float will be caught. And so there are videos on YouTube out there. I do think I have one even saved in my phone that someone has done the video on Instagram. That I have seen, but that is a way for you if you are not carrying your yarn in 2 hands, which is how I knit. I've got red yarn in my right hand and I've got blue yarn in my left hand or whatever, and as I'm knitting, I'm trapping floats as I go across, and that's a skill that you can learn. But if you are just dropping and picking up and you see a long float happening, in the next round, as you come around, you can put your needle underneath that long piece of string, and then when you pull the yarn through your knit stitch, it'll get hooked. You're not knitting it into the front, but you're just pulling the needle through. I'll see if I can find a video to share with all of you. But if you've never done that before, you've never done color work, it's a really simplistic way of trapping floats where you don't have to wrap one, wrap the other, unwrap the first, and keep going. Which, when I learned, that was mind-blowing to me, how to trap a float. I could not see it. I did not know what I was doing. I just wrote it down and I was like, wrap your red, wrap your blue, take your red off, pull your blue through, and the float would be trapped. And I was like, I don't get it. Now I totally can see it, but at the time, and I just don't feel like sometimes beginner knitters who are just learning how to add color are ready to learn how to trap a float. And they don't even know the terminology, like the word float. One of them wrote it down during class. So that's a tip or trick that I wanted to share because we did talk about it. Then another one was when you add new yarn, if you're going to stripe something or you're just going to add another color, you can just take your yarn and loop it over the stitch and you can just loop it and continue knitting and pull it through, and then you just have a tail hanging there of yarn that you weave in later, right? But that stitch that's wrapped can be really loose because it's not attached to anything on the other side. There's nothing there. So what you can do is tie the first part of tying your shoes over the working yarn so that it becomes a little knot, and then you just slide it up, snuck it all the way up to where the last stitch of the working yarn was, and then you can continue on working, and then afterwards you can pull that back out. So that is another trick that people get frustrated as new knitters, because when you come around and you've added yarn, that one stitch that is just draped over is just hanging out there loosely oftentimes, and you can snug it up, but it doesn't really become tight unless you do something with it. And so tying it on not permanently to that working yarn is just a great trick to do. In my closet, I have lots of pairs of workout pants, leggings, jeggings, jeans, and they're hanging over sturdy hangers, thicker plastic hangers. So I'll hang 2 pairs of jeans on one pair, 2 pairs of black leggings, a pair of gray leggings, whatever. I have a bunch of hangers. And I was so frustrated with not being able to find a pair of navy blue leggings last week when I wanted to wear this dress. I have a pair of dark blue navy leggings that are long, ankle length, and then I have a pair that are like capri length. And I wear them under, I have 2 of these dresses in that have blue in them. I couldn't find them, and I ended up taking a whole bunch of pants off the hook, trying to figure out where they were. I eventually found them, and I was like, there has to be a better way that you have an order, like the short ones are first and the long ones. But it happens when stuff comes out of the wash and you go to hang it back up and you're not careful. So I'm going to insert a picture of what I did. It took me 20 minutes one day because I have a labeler. And so I printed off labels, and I took all the pants off and I hung like things together and just stuck the label on the thicker part of the hanger. So now my soft gray 2 pairs of short leggings that I love, that I work out in all the time in the summer, are on a hanger that says soft gray. I have short black, long black, blue. I have a pair of maroon, green, and orange, 3 different ones that I wear with different dresses. I often will wear capri leggings underneath dresses in the summertime. I find that more comfortable than biker shorts. And I had a couple pairs of jeans. And then I got it all done, and I put these little labels on, and it is life-changing in my closet now. I went to put our clothes away from the weekend, and I was like, this is where the blue one goes, this is where the black one goes. And I have too many, but now I'm going to be able to tell which ones I wear and which ones I don't, because I will be able to turn them around or take them off the hanger if I'm not. That's one of the ways that I turn all the hangers around backwards for the season. And then if the hanger's not turned around to hang the right way at the end of the season, that item's got to go, right? You haven't worn it, you never used it. So I can do the same thing with these pants now, and I have little labels on them so that I can just be more organized, because when you have 4 pairs of black leggings and you have like a lightweight pair and then you have a spandex pair, and you don't want the spandex pair for the day because those are your workout ones, right? It seems like a really weird confession that I have too many pairs of colored leggings and jeggings and jeans, and I have a pair of khaki pants, and I have a pair of gold and black polka dot pants. Those are easy to see, but when you had just a bunch of denim, jean, black, blue in there, I was just having a terrible time. So maybe it will help one of you. I think you could just write on the edge of the hanger with a black permanent marker, but I happen to have the little label, and the label just stuck right on there on that thicker hanger. It was perfect. So I'm now going to be starting a section called Getting Organized. No, I'm just kidding. By Corey. Yeah, it's just a good reminder. Okay. Things I saw on the internet. I was out looking, and look at this. Granny McFlitter, A Country Yarn by Heather Haylock. There are 2 or 3 of these books. My nieces are coming for the weekend. my grandnieces. One of them's getting baptized, and they're going to come up and stay with us. And so I thought it would be fun to have something in the house that I could have them do. We do have some toys in the playroom, but not a lot. And I do think their parents are going to take them to the Mall of America. But the illustrations are just awesome. Granny McFlitter. And I got it on Amazon. There is, it won a Noble Book Award, and the author and illustrator are from Australia. And I just thought it was so, look at her. She's so excited at the end. Such a cute book. So that will be here for when the girls come. What have I been watching? Quickly, I watched Sneaky Pete. Thank you to whoever told me to watch that series. I really am liking that a lot. I watched The Lake. Someone, maybe it was the Grocery Girls podcast, that Jody watched it. Not a fan. It's a comedy, and I am not a fan of dumb humor, and this was silly. I watched the whole thing, too. Sometimes at night when I'm knitting, I just don't want to take the time to find something else. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep watching, but it was really dumb. If you love, like, silly, dumb humor, it was a lot of stereotypes. You know, I just didn't love it, but it's a high school sweethearts have a baby, they give it away for adoption. She comes back to live with the father years later. For the summer, they go to the lake. It's got a lot of silly stereotypes, just dumb humor that a lot of people find really funny. My husband and my daughter can go all in on that. So there will be people that will love this. I get that, right? It just wasn't for me, even though I watched a lot. And now I'm watching the Tour de France, and I'm really frustrated because I recorded it while we were up north at the lake, and I came home and it's all glitchy. The whole thing recorded with like, and I said to my husband, is that us? Is that our internet? And he's like, yeah, it must have just been. And I said, okay, so I went to the next day, so that was day 2. Day 3, I went and it's doing the same thing. And it's not, I recorded the USA channel, so that it should be fine, but it's just terrible. And I don't think that the USA channel would have posted. And I haven't seen it live because they have the day off today because it's a travel day. They're going from Denmark back to France. They have a 10-hour drive, so today's the day off. But if you've never watched the tour, I'm a huge fan. And I'm not a biker, but I love the backstories. I love the country scenery. I don't like the crashes, but I love watching just the camaraderie of men helping other men win and achieve. Like, the whole team is for one guy the whole time, right? They're all trying to let this one guy, who he gets to win the whole kit and caboodle and get all the popularity and stuff. But anyway, I love watching the tour, and it's usually 4 hours every day for the whole month of July, and I will just sit and knit to my heart's content. And then the new season of Alone is on, series 10 or 11, and it's coming out every Thursday. And then I get it because I bought the season because I didn't get it recorded. So I had to buy the season because the first 4 episodes were already up. And I don't know why I like that show, because they're surviving and they're wasting away and they have to kill animals to eat them, but it's just fascinating to me that people can go live survivalist. So that's what I'm watching. Okay, I'm going to show you a video of the river and the hummingbirds from up north. So I'm going to add that in right at the end. And I have a couple of little stories to tell you. So we're staying in cabin 7. And this is a rustic resort that has 22 cabins. And they have been remodeled, but you're not roughing it. You're not without, carpeting, a beautiful, comfortable couch, soft, not fancy, but wooden kitchen table and chairs, TV in the corner that they have satellite TV in every cabin, window air conditioner. But we usually don't stay in cabin 7. We usually stay in cabin 11 or 12. and it wasn't available for the whole, because people are going to be there for the week and we are only going for the weekend. And so this was smaller than what we're used to, and 2 single beds in one room and like a double bed, whatever, in 2 other little rooms. So there are 3 little bedrooms, little, like this much room between the beds and the wall. But so Ross and I did not sleep together because the 2 beds were so small and right up against the wall, and I was just like, this is not going to be easy. But you know, having that much bed to yourself is fine. And so, and he goes to bed earlier, whatever, so he could just go shut his door. But the shower was tiny. I'm gonna say 2 feet by 2 feet. No, not 3 feet, but little, very narrow. And the shower head was mounted so high on the wall that I drowned. So I'm taking my first shower, and there's a shower curtain, which are a pain because this is an installed shower, because back in the day, I'm sure they never even had showers in some of these cabins. So there's just a little lip, and then you have to kind of seal the shower curtain around. So, but you're touching it the whole time you're in there because it's so small, and the water is hitting me smack in the face. I can't adjust. I'm so short. I can't adjust the shower. It's going in my ears. I'm trying to duck under over here, and there's no room to duck. And so I turn around, and the water's hitting me on the top of my head, so it's all coming over my face. And I cannot move forward far enough for it to hit me in the back of the head. And so So I bent way down and got close to the wall and lathered my hair up, and I came out and told my husband, I'm like, I just drowned in the shower. And he's like, what? I'm like, it's so tall and I can't adjust it. Like, it was solid. I couldn't figure out that it would go up or down or side to side. It was just an older fashioned, and the water pressure isn't great at the lake. I mean, but not compared to your house, right? And so I came out, he laughed, and he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you had trouble. Then he took a shower. Lesson learned, buddy. He's like, oh my gosh. And he did get the shower head to adjust a tiny bit to the side, but not very far. And then he turned the water off, lathered his hair, lathered his body, turned the water on, rinsed, turned the water off, turned the water. And I was like, I don't want to turn the water off and on. So then when we were going to come home yesterday, I said, I'm showering when we get home. I'm not showering today. I haven't done anything since last night when we walked in. I'm just going to wait till we get home. Moments like that in your life teach you what kind of privilege you have and how absolutely thankful you should be. Last Thursday, I went to knitting group, and I had to drive my husband's truck. And it's an 89 Blazer, and it's gigantic, and I can't get up in it. I am 5'3" on a good day. And I have to get a stool if we're going to drive that truck, because it does not have running boards. And because of my knees and my foot and my shoulder, I can't just jump up into the seat, and there's nothing to grab onto because, you know, it's an old truck. So Ross gets a little stool and I step up, and so we don't take it. He drives it all the time. And on the driver's side, I can grab the steering wheel and kind of heft myself in, but it doesn't have like power windows. Like it does. It has a button, but they go down like and the steering's harder, and the gas pedal is not power gas. I don't know if that's a thing, but like, you have to really push. Your leg gets tired pushing on the gas. It's just shocking. And I got to knitting, and Matt said, I saw you had Ross's truck. And my friend Mary, who was off for the summer, was sitting there, and she goes, I could have picked you up. And I said, you know what? You could have, but it is good for me. It is good for my privileged white lady self to realize that, you know, I have a beautiful truck. It's 10, 11 years old and has getting more miles on it every day, but it has running boards. Everything is electric. It's got great air conditioning. Ross's didn't have that great air conditioning. Ross's, I had a hard time listening to my audiobook in the car because it makes so much more noise. Like, you know what? I need to be taken down a notch or two and just realize that I am privileged to have the things that I have, and it's a good lesson for me. So she kind of was like, well, I get that, right? So anyway, the truck in the shower. Kind of have to just say to yourself, you're really spoiled sitting in my air-conditioned house, podcasting on the dining room table with my computer right there and all the things you need, right? So my friend Mary, my other friend Mary, I have a lot of Marys in my life. Mary M. I think I have shared, and it's not my place to share too much, but she lost vision in April, and she had had a problem 14 years ago with one eye, and now the other eye has become affected, and so she is blind. And I have been going over to help her with different things. She has a lot of different things to learn. She can no longer drive or walk outside right now, and she lives alone. And so I've been going over and helping her with audiobooks, getting them on her iPad because I'm such a user, right? So we set those things. Just visiting with her because I'm a talker, and she likes to listen to me chatterbox on. I'll tell her all my stuff. And she doesn't live far from me, right over here. But I called her last week on Monday, and I said, we talked about this, but when you're ready, if you feel like you're ready, I think we could try knitting, because she really misses it. And she was a beginner for me probably 4 years ago, maybe a little longer time, if COVID really flies. But most of that group started 4 and 5 years ago. And then they now get together to knit. And so she's an advanced beginner, so not an expert knitter, has not been knitting all that long and learning with that group. But she said, you know what, I think I would like to try. She had told me she was really missing just the knitting. She said I would sit out on my deck, and she said I would just knit. And so I got some big yarn and some big needles, and I took them to knitting group. And I said, I think you're going to be best off if you try now. Maybe even just close your eyes. We're going to feel that first stitch with our thumb. And I knit in the movie theater. So it's not black, but you can't see. And so I know what those first few stitches felt like for me when I first tried to do a stitch without looking. And over time, you can kind of get that right. And then sometimes I'll come around and I'll know that I've made a mistake, something's going on. So I figured I could help her get started. I've known a couple of people who are blind that knit, and I think we can find a resource for that. She's getting all kinds of support and help from different agencies here in the Twin Cities. And I just wanted to share a little picture with you of she and I, because she knit last Tuesday at her knitting group. And she knit all the way around on this. I cast on in the round on a 16-inch, size 10 circular using Malabrigo Rasta. I thought we can work our way down. And every few stitches, she'd check and she'd say, I think it's okay. And I'd say, it is. And so I think eventually we'll probably be able to do a stockinette body of a sweater for sure, where she can just go round and round and round, but she'll feel like she's legitimately making something. Because this hat, we can make it a cowl or whatever, that she's just practicing going round and round. So I just wanted to share all that with you because we all have something, we all have our things, but sometimes hearing about other people's challenges makes you a little more grounded. And she just has such a positive attitude. She's had bad days, but she's just taken this on and saying this is the new me. And it was we were just so joyous that she got to knit. And so one of the members said, let's take a picture. So we did a little hug, and she was tickled, and I came home just, and I do think that the other knitters in that group will be able to keep her going. I wouldn't have to have been me, but I have knit in movie theaters for years. So I thought, well, I know how I kind of did it and what I felt. So maybe we can get this done. So those are your Corey stories for today, and I'm going to take a break. I think that's all I have. I was just asked to apply to teach in New Jersey in September. Interweave Yarn Fest is thinking about having a kind of a last-minute big event in New Jersey, and you can go to their website, but I don't think there's anything out there yet. They're just trying to see if they can get any teachers. It's not that far from Newark Airport, a town that starts with P, Pixa, Sani, but it's not the groundhog place. But it sounds like that to me. Anyway, So I looked it up and thought, I don't know if I can afford to go because they don't pay, unless you get a bunch of days, you don't get enough travel expense to cover your costs. And I don't know if I can afford to rent a car right now. And the flights and the cars are just astronomical. So unless they up their contracts, I don't know. And I don't know that I could come in at the same time and share a ride with someone, or if we could Uber, how far that is from the airport. Might be too far. Anyway, I applied. We'll see what the contract looks like, see whether or not I even get hired. But I might be going to New Jersey in September. So we'll see about that. But, okay, going to take a quick break, and then we'll do the winners. Okay, I'll see how efficiently I can do this. So this bag is a single strand studio. It's really pretty browns. And there is a sock blank called Family Reunion Spring. And there you can see it's got the picture on the front of it. And it's by Goosey Fibers, Good for the Gander. So that's going out to Carolyn. That was post number 51. She is cmjanz in Wisconsin. So that's number 1. 2 is a little knitting pouch here. It is by the Silver Shed, who has now retired, but it's super cute. And it has a sock blank by Stranded Dye Works, Plateau it's called, and it's got pinks and coral and orange and a little black speckle in it. And there's also some stitch markers here like this from Knitty by Nature, and it's a little, looks like a hippopotamus and a little pink stitch marker. So that is going out to Gail, jgtck, Gail in South Dakota. Gail. Marker wouldn't right there. Then the next bag is a green bag, and it's going out to KnittingmaryB. And it has this Leading Men Fiber Arts beautiful skein. It is in the Reflecting Pond colorway. It's green. It looks blue or gray on the screen. It's greeny blue. It's very pretty, and it has a project bag and a double pointed needle holder on it, as well as some green and little teapot stitch markers. Maybe is that what that is? That actually might be a little monster that's made to look like a teapot. Oh, that's cute. Little stitch markers in there by Knitty by Nature. So that is going to KnittingmaryB. The next bag goes out to Heather in Maine, lacewingonheather. And here is a little project bag. 2 little project bags. This one has a little deer on it. There we go. Little sock bag. It's by Kitchen Counter Crafter. That's Java Jenny from Wisconsin. It has a little sock pouch of Anne of Green Gables. There are some pencils in here that are knitting themed that match the colored bag. There's a stitch marker by Steel City Stitcher and a Knits by Joe skein of yarn. I tried to coordinate things together to make them easier to give more than one gift in each of the bags so that I wouldn't have quite as much shipping. The shipping costs on all these prizes is going to be. Okay, now we have the bag by Awesome Granny. This is an extra large, it's folded in half sock bag. I've showed this before. This is going to Debbie in Tennessee, and she is Aunt Debbie, A-N-T Debbie, on Ravelry. Bags by Awesome Granny. Then we have this little orange bag. This is made by S. Borky, and it has a coordinating little dog double pointed needle holder. It's got this speckled yarn by Evil Little Goat. It's gray with purple, and then there are some little clips by Tangerine Designs in here. So a little prize bag there, all in one. It's going to Knitty Pearl 2. That's Dana in Indiana. She was post number 114. This is 2 skeins of Springvale worsted by 3 Irish girls in the Purple Rain colorway. It is variegated gray, dark blue, purple, light purple, and dark purple. It's worsted weight by 3 Irish girls, and that is going to Val in New York. Val the Rizzle. Hi Val, I know you from Instagram. Bag that has a whole kit and caboodle of knitting items. There's some washi tape, there's a shawl pin, there are some stitch holders, there's a tape measure in a little plastic tube, there are stitch markers, and then this little bag that I got at Shepherd's Harvest. So that is all going out to Debbie Amy, and that's Debbie in Illinois, post number 13. And I know Debbie. Hi Debbie, I hope you're doing okay and hanging in there. It is got a really cute little flag of a snowman knitting, and it says joy. So you could hang it on your wall of your craft room, or if you have one of those little flag holders out by your mailbox. That is in there, along with some leather stitch markers that are also pink to kind of coordinate. So that's going to Sassy Apache. That's Yolanda in Oregon. Hi Yolanda, that's post number 15. So this is a project bag, green project bag with knitting needles, and it's going to Linda in Michigan. That was post number 74, and that's K8R Cater. And I think Linda, you maybe have won a prize from me before, because that sounds familiar to me. I'm going to write sheep green sandy on that one, so I remember I can watch this back too. But I have another one that's very similar to that one. It just doesn't have the whole bottom section of the green sheep. And this is going to Nurse Nerl. There is no other information, not the first name, not the city, the town, the state, anything like that. So it's number 89, Nurse Nerl. That's going to get the other green bag. Then one of the big tote bags that has the rocking chairs and the rocks on it, and that's going to Cat Law, and that's number 99, and there's no other information, but I'm assuming that that's a Kathy that goes by Cat, or Kathleen that goes by Cat, so it's K-A-T, Cat Law on Ravelry. Then we have this big sheepy tote bag. It's got the rocks on the front for IROCK, all kinds of sheep on this side, a pocket in the inside. That's going to Demi Fraggle, and that is post number 98. That's a sheep tote. Nice from Sandy. And there's no other information on that post either for first name or state. You guys gotta help me out so so that I can know who you are by putting your name on Ravelry or your state or your initials. Give me something. Okay, then in this is kind of one of the bigger prizes here. This is a big red bag with sheep on it. It's probably the biggest one. And then there are 4 skeins of this Silk Paca 601 Simple Taupe yarn that's going with this together as a, and that is going to Mandy Vaughn Knits in Michigan. She's got all of her names there. Mandy Vaughn. It's number 94, post number 94, red sheep and yarn. That down there. Okay, so this is the orange kind of rust colored. It's not bright orange or anything. Backpack tote here. It is made in Portland by ritualdyes.com, and that is going out with this needle case to Lacey Babe. That's Peggy. Post number 118. And I know Peggy, I think I've done prize for you before. I talked to you on Ravelry maybe. So that is the orange bag and the needles. We have this Sweater Camp water bottle and this cabled vase. It's got cabled stitches all the way around it, and it's just a lovely vase. It came from Threshold. It's called Porcelain Vase. Anyway, it's absolutely lovely. So I'm going to wrap these up with bubble wrap and put them all in together. And that is going to Mary Leah, and it's Mari Leah B, post number 83 on Instagram. Vase and the water bottle. That's not sure what that's called. Anyway, these two will go together in a pack. And then the very last one is metal, completely full set of metal needles. It's never been used. It has all the little tighteners in it, the little ends, the little gripper thing to screw them in. It's a whole set. I think these are still available on Amazon as a set, but I just have never used it, and I have several interchangeable sets. So this one's going out to Carnacy, and that's Leslie in California, and that I think is prize number 17. Needles in case. And we are to the bottom of the box. I just want to make sure that there's nothing else sitting here that I forgot to draw for. So there were 17 prizes that went with the knit along. If you have time, go over to the final finished objects thread and take a look. There were some lovely, the last entry on Thursday was a pair of Mr. Tom's Field socks, and they're so pretty. They turned out really nice. I really appreciated that person giving that sock pattern some love. So there were lots of hats knit. There were a number of pairs of socks. There were a couple of Fiber Friend shawls that were knit, Legacy Park shawls that were knit in the knit along. So yeah, it was very, very successful. We had 17 winners. Lots of people participating, and that just warms my heart when people knit my patterns and post them and show those things. So I will need many of your first, last name, and your address. You can send that to me multiple ways. You can send it on Instagram as a DM. You can send it on Ravelry. Just go to IROCKNITS, and there's a little thing that says send message, and you can click that, or just send it to Corey@irocknits.com in an email, and I just need that information. I'll be getting those out in the mail all week. I did have one person offer to pay for some postage, and so if that is something that you're interested in doing, or you have a little extra money around, this 17 prizes, even if each one only cost me $5, which it won't, it's going to be a big expense to send all these out, which I'm happy to do. But people do give me, every few podcasts, I get a little $3 coffee, which for me is a Diet Coke, and many of you will give me $3 on Ko-fi, KOFI.com, and you can send people a little bit of money, buy them a coffee, thank them for doing something nice for you or whatever. And so several of you have done that in the last few weeks, where I get a little $3 ping, and I'm like, oh, how sweet is that? And so if you have the inclination, it's not mandatory whatsoever, but it would be helpful in this situation that I'm going to be sending out all of these prizes, and it's just going to get to be a little expensive to do that. But I am happy to do it because so many of you participated, and that means that you used my patterns, and the more patterns that get out there, the more people notice them and like them. So I think that that's all for this week. I'm going to have everybody come in for 100 hugs today. 100 big hugs. The 100th podcast. It's a lovely day. It rained this morning, which we needed some rain. My husband's out mowing. I think we'll go for a little walk later. I think we're grilling hot dogs on the grill. We grilled hamburgers up north, and we ate baked spaghetti that was left over in the freezer, so we didn't have to cook one night, which was really nice. But I think we're going to have hot dogs on the grill, maybe potato salad, some chips. We'll see if he gets to get some fresh buns. We'll see about what we're going to have on the grill. And it's nice for him to have an extra day off work this week so he can be around. He worked on his car this morning, and I hope you all are having a wonderful summer. I hope that it's not too hot, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, too cold for you. I hope that you're not flooded, because there are some parts of the U.S. that are greatly flooded, and then there's fires different places. So yeah, people have lots of stuff that you write me and tell me what's going on in your part of the world, and I think, oh my goodness, everybody's got different things going on. The Dusk saga here continues. We do not have we knew that the carpenter was would be out of town until the end of the month, so we can't really call him until tomorrow to find out where we are on his schedule. So we are still living with all the office stuff in the dining room. It's fine. We're getting by. We're getting some new garage doors, and so we're picking stain. We finally found a stain. I think the tree for the backyard is getting delivered this week and planted, and we're going to check off getting some new chairs for around this dining room table. All the things that we made a list of all the things that needed to happen before my husband retires, and the list got rather long. Thanks for watching so much. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I feel like you've become good friends, especially those that always comment, and we go back and forth a couple times. I just really appreciate that, and I feel the love and support from all of you for doing the podcast. So until next time, keep your fork, keep it colorful, waddle on, no green bananas, you'll never regret ripping back, don't complain with your mouth full, buy the gravy. Talk to you later. Bye. Love you all.